You're retro trekking with the Caramel Apples this week, where we're picking up on the continuation of part two of the retro film Back to the Future, where we'll once again talk about all the deeply entertaining characters, highlights, and backstory of this nostalgic masterpiece that even today still stands the test of time. Join Cooper Lee and myself as we deep dive into this week's Orchard Trek Retro. And now, here's part two of Back to the Future. Great Scott! You know, the retro loving public can recall so many of his iconic roles from over recent years. I just have to say this real quick though. I love his role in the film The Dream Team.
Yeah.
And he was starring alongside our favorite Batman of all time, Michael Keaton.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that movie was nuts.
Yes, it was.
Don't get me started talking about the Dream Team. Goodness, talk about a rabbit hole.
Oh, they're so much fun, though.
We really need to get back on point. I can go on and on about the Dream Team. So, what else you got there, Cooper?
Well, Marty McFly was infamously played by the talented Michael J. Fox. And you're like quite the fox, huh?
You didn't hear me say that.
But that piece of retro history almost was.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of curious. But Michael J. Fox had always been the first choice for Marty McFly, but he was unable or unavailable due to the scheduling conflicts with his work involved in Family Ties of 1982. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. Especially back then.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole interesting backstory on some of the scheduling and casting conflicts going on the set of Family Ties that were mentioned. So he was a valuable asset there, which would have made it difficult for him to join in on Back to the Future.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Did you know that the role was temporarily cast with another talented actor in mind? Eric Stoltz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so try to picture that. Back to the Future would have been, no doubt, still a good movie, but let's be honest. It would have been an entirely different movie just based on that one change.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, huh?
Oh, definitely, yeah. But what happened?
Well, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale initially cast Eric Stoltz after seeing his performance in the 1985 movie Mask.
Okay.
But only after 6 weeks of filming, our writers felt that Mr. Stoltz wasn't right for the part, and Eric Stoltz agreed.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which, this is what they do. And if
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not... Maybe he's like, I just don't feel it. So,
oh, yeah. Tell us now.
Yeah, hard to get in the character if you don't feel it. So this little detail I found funny, so I'll share it briefly. In regards to Eric Stoltz playing Marty McFly, fun fact, during Mr. Stoltz's time on the film and his being a method actor and all, Eric Stoltz refused to answer to any other name. But that of his character, Marty McFly. So this is the funny part. That when Christopher Lloyd was told that Eric Stoltz was to be replaced, he asked, "Who's Eric?" You can totally see him doing that too, right? And after further explanation, added, "Oh, I really thought his name was Marty." Sure you did.
Silly goose.
You used to dig. So I think this is, a bit interesting, but Eric Stoltz has stated that despite having worked on Back to the Future for several weeks, he curiously has no memory of it.
Oh, is Mr. Stoltz a little difficult, maybe?
Hmm.
sour apples?
So long story short, Michael J. Fox finally worked out a schedule to fulfill this commitment for both projects.
That's a big deal.
So I guess he didn't sleep.
Yeah, 2 and 2. Yeah, poor guy. Jeez.
But he's committed, so that's cool, right?
Yeah.
And it said that every day during production, he drove straight to the movie set after taping Family Ties and only averaged about 5 hours of sleep. So, okay, we'll give him the 5 hours.
Good grief. Ooh, brutal.
Yeah, reshooting Eric Stoltz scenes added $3 million to the budget.
Pocket change?
Yeah. But thank goodness, now we have our beloved retro film.
Man. Now we get our film of Back to the Future on how well we finally recounted in our memories. We know it well.
Yeah.
And what a good and smart change that was, too. I mean, for Back to the Future, this movie was a top-grossing release of 1985 and holds the record of staying at number 1 at the box office for 3 solid weeks.
Wow, that's cool.
So, I mean, you can sit and think about little bits and pieces of Back to the Future, which I have to say this. I do have to say this. I was late watching this thing in the full scope of it. I do that with a lot of 80s movies. Yeah. There's some that people talk about, rave about all the time. This was one of them. I was a little late in the game watching it.
Okay, yeah.
And we did watch it with our girl squad. But I think when I saw it, oh my goodness, it had to have been, this is embarrassing. I think it was 2016 maybe, 2017.
So recent past, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad I did it then because I had a better understanding of it and everything. So I watched it with the hubby hubs when he helped explain some of the memories because he was an avid fan.
Yeah.
But it was neat because it was like, oh wow, they really were into the 50s, and that was a big thing back in that era to go to the 50s era.
Right. So I have to ask, did you watch 1, 2, and 3? Did you watch all of them at the same time, or did you kind of just zero in on the first one and not really worry about sequels?
That's the one I remember the most. I did see the second one. I don't think I've seen the third one.
Really?
To be honest with you, I don't think I have. Started it and didn't finish.
Okay.
So that's something about the Wild West. I don't think I've seen that one.
You knew enough that it wasn't. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, the first one was pretty cool though. Mm-hmm. So like most of them, the original's the best. So, but these were the very details that effortlessly reeled the fans in. So I mean, we can sit and talk about this all day long, but the proof's there. That's what it is. They love it.
Yeah. And you can't forget about the principal, Mr. Strickland, played by actor James Tolkan.
You know who that is, don't you? You remember who he is, don't you? In another movie.
Jog my memory because I'm picturing someone else right now. I know that's not who this is. So
okay, Maverick and Goose. You getting ready to send them to Top Gun? It's the that's the same guy.
Okay, cool. Yes. Okay. I know who you're talking about now.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Love connecting dots.
It's sorely needed in this orchard.
I know. But so many movies back in the retro 80s really highlighted and gave us a window into what high school culture was really like. Living through that period, we just didn't realize how historic it was going to be and how, generations later, people were really going to, dig it, right? They really get into it.
No clue.
Yeah.
It's been an explosion, really. Like you said, kind of surreal, kind of beside yourself. We are walking relics of that history.
Yeah.
Gen X rocks.
If we had any idea, we would really be living those moments hardcore, right? We were just going about our lives, not really thinking about how impactful it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is.
But, young adults hanging out at a popular hot hangout spot together. School dances were big back then.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Yeah, and, they were often very well portrayed. And so on and so on. It just was a cool time.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why Back to the Future is a good movie to garner or dial up warm nostalgia.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. But Cooper, let's kind of address the elephant in the room here for a minute.
Sure.
So although Back to the Future is an excellent throwback film, the storyline, plot, concept of Back to the Future is, shall we say, rather interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We have Marty McFly travel back in time where he, in essence, is preoccupied with interfering with the union of his parents as teenagers in 1955, back in their heyday. But as the movie develops, we can tell that even though Marty is desperately trying to get George, his father, pumped up with courage to go talk to Lorraine, his mother,
yes,
Lorraine starts to develop a crush on Marty. Or as she calls him for a bit through the movie, Calvin.
Interesting indeed.
Yeah.
And as we remember, and this is cute, but Marty at one point decided to question Lorraine on why she kept calling him Calvin. And she had pointed out that it was printed all over his Calvin Klein underwear. Because I think that was a thing, parents would put their kid's name in their underwear, maybe especially if there was multiple or they went out to camp or something.
I think it was. Yes. And then designer anything back then was key too.
I know, right? So with Marty traveling back in time, let's put things in perspective in regards to our three actors playing the McFlys.
Okay.
Fun fact, did you know the reference to Calvin Klein in the bedroom scene is a reference to a trend of the 50s where people would put their names stitched into their underwear?
Oh, you just said that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we put it in the actual official fun fact version.
That's right. Just trying to get you archivers thinking. Well done.
Yes. Fun fact 2. Michael J. Fox is only 10 days younger than his young mother, Lorraine, a.k.a. Leah Thompson, and is also 3 years older than his on-screen father, George, a.k.a. Crispin Glover.
Oh, wow.
What do they call it? Movie magic?
That's right.
Hardcore for that. And speaking of Crispin Glover, fun fact number 3. Did you know that during filming, Crispin Glover would be so nervous due to just starting out as a fresh actor that he would be speechless?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but this improved his character of George McFly since George is a nervous guy.
Okay.
Crispin Glover even had to do voice-over recordings for his character because he was too nervous to speak. Mm. Yeah, boy, can I ever relate to that? Kudos to Mr. Glover on pushing through, though.
Yeah, see, I love the backstory we learn on some of these retro topics. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I just wanted to say that during research, we saw that Back to the Future was initially rejected by every other major studio. That's still a common thing, I think. They're not rejecting the right ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
I digress. Most studios rejected the script because it wasn't, as they say, raunchy enough in comparison to some of the most successful teenage comedies going on at that time of a similar nature. Back to the Future's script was rejected 40 times before Universal purchased it.
That's crazy.
It is. And Disney rejected the film as they felt that the angle of a mother falling in love with her son was an inappropriate notion. So then there was the issue where it was said that the studios were leery of Robert Zemeckis' work due to his few of his previous films largely being flops. I know, there's a lot of backstory. But he helmed the 1984 film Romancing the Stone as director, which boosted his profile, resulting in studios taking a second look at his movie proposals. And this week we're talking about one of them, Back to the Future.
Yeah, and I would say that Romancing the Stone was a good film. So, I mean, after seeing that, you could see why they were like, okay, you know, you gained our attention again. We'll at least think about it.
We have that one on DVD. I love that. It's a good go-to.
It is. Good times. 80s are amazing.
It's the best, yeah.
It really is. So, on about Mr. Zemeckis. The direction of Robert Zemeckis is very good in Back to the Future. And the cinematography, the scenery, the sets, the costumes, all are so well done. Fun fact, you may find it interesting to know that the inspiration for Back to the Future largely comes from writer Bob Gale discovering his father's high school yearbook. Talk about some inspiration. That's crazy.
That is.
And wondering whether he would have been friends with his father as a teenager.
He's a thinker.
Yeah.
I like that.
Bob Gale also said that if he had the chance to go back in time, he would really go back and see if they would have been friends.
That guy's a deep thinker. That's really cool.
Yes. And I do hope the answer would have been yes.
Yes. Because a lot of what ifs might not have a happy ending, but since this isn't really truly possible. What am I talking about? We're retro checking right now. Yeah. It's totally possible. Totally.
Yes.
But seriously, even outside of our discussion of Back to the Future this week, that concept would be wild. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. So talk about having a vivid imagination. So just a couple of years ago in April 2020, our screenwriter Bob Gale finally decided to explain the plot hole question about why Marty's parents didn't remember him as the kid in high school who got them together. He told The Hollywood Reporter, and I quote, "Bear in mind that George and Lorraine only knew Marty / Calvin for 8 days when they were 17. And they didn't even see him every one of those 8 days. So many years later, they still might remember that interesting kid who got them together on their first date." He goes on and continues, and I quote, "But I would ask anyone to think back on their own high school days and ask themselves, how will they remember a kid who might have been in their school for even a semester? Or someone you went out with just one time? If you had no photo reference after 25 years, you'd probably have just a hazy recollection. So Lorraine and George might think it funny that they once actually met someone named Calvin Klein, and even if they thought their son at age 16 or 17 had some resemblance to him, it wouldn't be a big deal." I bet most of us could look through our high school yearbooks and find photos of our teenage classmates that bear some resemblance to our children. End quote. So here, this is the stuff I appreciate the explanation of. But that is really still some seriously deep stuff, huh, Coop?
It is, and I can see his point, but at the same time, it's like, if this is the person that you married, you would probably remember the ones who were in deep connection with that. This wasn't just some crush and then you moved on throughout your life and married somebody else, 6, 7 people beyond that.
Yeah.
This is the person you ended up marrying. So I see what he's saying. I totally see what he's saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah.
It's a cool basic concept, but deep.
It is.
Like when you really, the rabbit hole, so to speak, you break that open, it's like, oh, okay.
Literally, yeah.
Well, now let's talk about another key factor of Back to the Future, and that is the music and the theatrical score it contained. In my opinion, music truly makes the world go around, and having a killer musical score, awesome music as part of a film's soundtrack can make or break any movie.
Oh, yeah.
The Back to the Future score and soundtrack, too, is epic. The score was done by Alan Silvestri, and his work elevates the sense of fun in the film to a greater level. The main theme is one of the most memorable themes ever in the history of film, or so we think anyway. Alan Silvestri's score begins 18 minutes into the movie, appropriately when the DeLorean time machine is revealed.
Yeah. Fun fact. Did you know that Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale actually received a fan letter from none other than John DeLorean after Back to the Future's release, thanking them for immortalizing his car?
Oh, that's sweet.
That is totally cool. You know, for school. Quote, need 1.21 gigawatts of power. Here's another bit of Carmel trivia, Orchard Archivers. The DeLorean time machine is a licensed, registered vehicle in the state of California, and our star hero car appropriately had a catchy vanity tag. Can you remember what that tag says? Plutonium force activate. If you remember, there were 2 red labels on the flux capacitor that said disconnect capacitor, drive before opening at the top, and shield eyes from light. The DeLorean was a bad mamma jamma.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
Back to the Future romanticized the DeLorean DMC-12, which is regarded as one of the worst cars of all time. It is said that the cars used on Back to the Future often broke down, causing minor delays in production.
Oh no.
That could be a problem, yes, very much so. So this is funny too. When the DeLorean is introduced and Doc Brown gets out of it, smoke is pouring out from the interior of the car. Okay, so our caramel apple brain just going to overdrive. It is really smoke. You let your imaginations fly as they will. I don't know. That's how we roll around here. Demented apples. But it's funny because this never happens again and it's never explained.
And to remember the scenes when Doc emerged from the DeLorean in a radiation suit.
It makes it worse.
It really does. You know, Marty asked him, is that a Devo suit? And for those of you who don't know, Devo was an American post-punk musical group whose mainstream success was largely in the late 70s and early 80s.
Right.
The radiation suit that he was wearing was similar to the ones Devo was known for wearing in their music videos and live performances. Back to the Future was so full of 80s retro references.
Thanks for that little bit of intel. That's pretty cool. You know, stuff happens.
Yeah.
But really, that's a huge step up from Doc Brown's band, which says on the side, Dr. E. Brown Enterprises, 24-hour scientific services. And don't forget the sticker on the back of Doc's van that read, "One nuclear bomb can ruin your whole day." And then you think about him getting out of the car with the smoke. Oh, what are we trying to say here?
Right.
Oh my goodness, Doc Brown was such a funny nerd.
He was. He owned it, didn't he?
He did. Oh. So now about the music and soundtrack for Back to the Future.
Before that, obviously though, like this was before acronyms, right? Because his long title, he really should have broke that up a little bit.
Yeah, was this a limousine van? They got to stretch that buddy out. It's ugly.
Oh goodness. So, you know, we mentioned a second ago that the score was done by Alvin Silvestri, in which his work elevates the sense of fun and adventure in the film to a greater level. It's always fairly interesting how many decisions and changes and potential change in projects are made behind the scenes. Yeah. Fun fact, executive producer Steven Spielberg.
Who's that?
Who is that? Initially, he had some reservations about hiring composer Alvin Silvestri, having been unimpressed by his score for the previous aforementioned film connected to his Romancing the Stone. During a preview screening in which the film was accompanied by a temporary track that only used part of Alvin Silvestri's score, Steven Spielberg commented to Robert Zemeckis that a particularly grand cue was the sort of music the film needed. Yeah, unaware that it was indeed one of Alvin Silvestri's cues.
Very cool.
Yeah.
There too are numerous references and nods to rock music and various famous artists of the 50s, which helped set the ideal tone of that early era. But another popular 80s rock star vocalist was not only asked to write a song for Back to the Future, but he also was asked to do a cameo. He was actually the high school band audition judge of itself in the film. Now, whoever is that, Coop?
Let me think. That was none other than the infamous, talented Huey Lewis of Huey Lewis and the News.
Nice. And we actually talked about this in our dedicated episode to him and Huey Lewis and the News, the whole band. We actually talked about his cameo in Back to the Future real briefly, so
Yeah.
but they have an interesting history themselves, so if you want to go back and check that out, it's right there.
Yeah.
Meet us at the Retro Orchard and see what all kinds of Carmelicious gems you can find therein.
So Huey Lewis was asked by director Robert Zemeckis and screenwriter Bob Gale to write a song for Back to the Future. However, the two creative execs were not thrilled with the first song Huey had penned for them.
Well, they were picky, weren't they?
Yes, they were. And after explaining what they were hoping for, Huey Lewis came back with The Power of Love.
Oh, can totally see the skateboarding scenes right now.
Right?
Yes.
Right? And he was then told they needed one more song, and so upon Huey Lewis providing and doing a cut of the movie, here we have the inspiration for Back in Time.
Oh, cool beans.
Yeah.
Huey Lewis's inclusion in Back to the Future, both in his cameo as well as his timeless musical contributions, were so much of what made Back to the Future film nothing short of epic.
This is true.
Mm-hmm.
So check this out. Fun fact.
Okay.
Although Universal Studio execs ended up loving Huey Lewis's song, The Power of Love, they were disappointed that it didn't mention the film's title.
Uh-oh.
Oops. So they took it upon themselves to send memos out to radio stations reminding DJs to mention the song's association with Back to the Future.
Oh, they weren't playing, were
No, they were not.
They're like, you didn't say anything about us. What is wrong here? Way to go, Huey. This powerful film anthem, The Power of Love, is synonymous with our choice retro film this week, Back to the Future. The two entities go together like hand in glove in our retro-loving minds. This song, this film, and all of the fun elements that come together to make this retro gem was mostly nostalgic for our star Michael J. Fox. It is said that his character, Marty, being portrayed as riding skateboards, chasing girls, and interest in playing music with hopes of becoming a rock star, was the exact same way he was during his own high school days. He wasn't acting much, and he's like, I'm just doing it. It's another day in the life.
I just changed my name. So it does sound like a normal, fun-loving teenager.
Oh, totally.
You know, and we actually go more in depth about the life and career highlights of the actor Michael J. Fox right here on Retro Trek with the Caramel Apples podcast.
Yes, yes.
So go check that out for more deep dive, caramelicious details on this fine actor himself.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Michael J. Fox had always been the first choice for Marty, because it is his inclusion in Back to the Future that really fanned the flames of our imagination on all things great and retro. And not only in just the 80s, but we also got a glimpse of how things might have played out even 30 years earlier, in the 50s.
Yeah.
So these are some of the reasons why some, if not most, films that were made back in recent years warmed our hearts and were dripping with raw nostalgia. Back to the Future's success was so evident that it went on to become an uber successful franchise with Back to the Future's Parts 2 and 3. All three films were adored by die-hard retro fans alike.
Yeah, and Back to the Future is truly a time-traveling classic. The Back to the Future trilogy has been a fan favorite for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because films such as these really reflect what it was like being a young person back in the 80s.
There it is.
Yeah, this movie was well written, executed, and acted, and providing incredible energy, all the while remaining wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly disappointing that Hollywood doesn't make better films like they did back then.
Yeah.
But I guess that helps us to appreciate our retro classics that captured movie magic and wonder the way our collective minds remembered. Now we have the luxury of streaming wonderful classics at any time, like Back to the Future.
Yep. Well said. It's really impossible to forget something this good. The performances were spectacular. One of the best things I appreciate about Back to the Future, Coop, is that it really makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have an in-depth conversation about the plausibility of the storyline here, and then spend hours talking about what we just watched.
Yeah.
The what ifs. Here we go, the what ifs again. This film is clever and entertaining. And to cap off the whole discussion, our film was just so much fun with its slapstick moments included all throughout. I'm really not a big science fiction fan, so I'm just putting that out there.
She's not. Boo! Boo!
Whatever, buzzkill. But I will say that Back to the Future mixes the science fiction aspect, humor, as well as non-stop action nicely. So I just have to swallow my pride on that one.
Yeah.
And we can't deny the amazing chemistry between Marty and Doc. The two of them cast together was an excellent pairing.
Oh, facts.
Facts!
Facts. Slow standing golf clap. And not only was their chemistry evident in all three installments of Back to the Future trilogy, but I find it superiorly heartwarming that actors Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, all these many years later, it's a lot of years,
Yeah.
and through some of life's difficult hurdles to weather, still have a very close bond and friendship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's cool.
It is.
We talk more about this in the retro track dedicated to the actor, Michael J. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't go too much into it. So I have one more fun fact to share before we close out our Orchard Trek retro adventure this week. Fun fact. If you notice, Doc's distinctive hunched over look developed when the filmmakers realized the extreme difference in height between actors Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Michael J. Fox is 5'4.5". He is my fellow person, height-wise.
He's only 5'4.5" inches tall.
Yes, he's a little guy. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, Michael J. Fox and I would be looking eye to eye, definitely on a height chart, because we are the same height. And, not so much with Christopher Lloyd, because he was 6'1". And in order to compensate for the height discrepancy, director Robert Zemeckis used specific blocking where the two often stood far apart at different camera angles for close-ups.
Okay. Huh.
Christopher Lloyd would have to hunch over to appear in frame with Michael J. Fox. The same approach was used in the following sequels.
Well, this has been an interesting deep dive into one of our favorite retro gems, hasn't it, Cooper?
Oh yeah, most enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Back to the Future introduced to not only this film, but the whole trilogy, the many dualities concerning time travel that becomes a constant mainstay within the film. We have the iconic town clock, awakening in a strange place, letters. These are the key components when connecting the first film of Back to the Future along with its following two sequel films. So if you want to enjoy a fun, most nostalgic time, then look no further than to your classic movie streaming channels or to your prized collection of DVDs. But if you pop in Back to the Future or either of the following two films in this trilogy, then you're easily in for a good time.
Oh, much agreed, Kenneth. So much fun, and it's just enjoyable. Kick back, relax, and just take it all in. They do the work for you.
They really do. Easy fun, as you said.
And there's so much more we could cover about this movie. There's just never enough time.
Yep.
So we should go back to the future and start over. No, just kidding.
I'm game. I'm packed.
Oh, good. So let's do it. Let's do it. But you know what? I've truly enjoyed talking about this, at length today, this being Back to the Future. It has been so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And anytime we have the chance to go back and revisit better times is always right in my book.
I'm with you.
So I think we'll have to agree that watching Back to the Future brings us to a nostalgic state. And the 80s saw a lot of excellent original young films. I'm so glad we got to be part of this awesome era. Great Scott! Love what you heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. To tune into future treks into the Orchard Archives, meet up with us here next week, same time, same place at the Sweet Spot. And it would mean the world to us if you could leave us a shining review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and explore more iconic memories. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Bye for now. Way to retro.